Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Who's This Guy? The only show on YouTube critics are now describing as surprisingly mediocre. Mediocre means good, right? On today's episode, I finally figured out how to do mathematics. Because after looking at Project Cars 1 and 3, today we're looking at 2. This is like when I read The Goblet of Fire first and then went back and read 1, 2, and 3. He's a wizard. Well, this all makes a lot more sense now. A lot of you let me know that Project Cars 2 is just the bestest thing ever. And basically just Project Cars 1 again with more content, cars, tracks. So I was very excited when my copy showed up in the mail the other day. I was very excited when my copy showed up in the mail the other day because I love Project Cars 1, so more of the same but with more content around it sounds awesome. Also, it definitely couldn't be worse than Project Cars 3. Ugh. So now I've played Project Cars 2 and I'm troubled. Oh, and also kind of frightened because people love this game and I was fully expecting to love it as well. But in a lot of ways, I think this is worse than the first game. Let's quickly roll it before everyone hurts me. Chapter 1, more of a good thing. Let's get one thing out of the way right off the bat. Project Cars 2 is a good game, and there's a lot of things about this game that I really like. The improved weather system is awesome. The wet weather conditions in particular are very wet looking. The spray coming off the backs of other cars that blocks your vision and creates chaos on the track strike me as particularly realistic. But I must stress again, I'm not actually a real race car driver, so I can't vouch for the realism of this. The weather system creates really striking imagery at times, like when the afternoon sun peeks through the clouds and reflects off the wet track. Really spectacular. Also, the night racing here is super atmospheric. The way your headlights cast shadows off the cars in front of you and cars behind you, their headlights will fill up the interior of your cockpit, and you can damage your front headlights and end up racing around in complete darkness. See how cool this was? Whoa, fuck, God. Screen tearing makes a return, sadly. I'm not sure if this is just something on the console versions. I did play this on PS4, not on PC. So PC team, can you let me know if this is an issue with the Project Cars series in general? Because it seems pretty bad across all 3 games on the consoles. Overall, this is a really nice looking game. It does like some of the more ostentatious lighting from the original game. They've gone for a bit of a flatter look, which means there are less moments where you look at it and go, ooh. But there's also less moments where you look at it and go, ooh. And of course, the world's greatest playable camera angle makes a proud return. Though I must stress, don't use this camera angle while driving this Lotus because you can't see shit and things will go bad. And oh my goodness. Speaking of oh my goodness, the physics system is still really solid here. And it makes pack racing get pretty crazy at times, particularly with yours truly behind the wheel. Seriously, it's getting a bit ridiculous at this point that I'm still allowed on the tour. There's just a pile of broken chassis and concussions in my wake. Sorry friend, coming through. The real advancement I noticed in Project Cars 2 though is the structure to the overall career mode, where we've still got the freewheeling, let's go with any discipline vibe of the first game, but then throw on top of that unlockable events, manufacturer-specific races, and you're also building up brand loyalty as well. It makes the single player in this game really appealing from a structure standpoint. So Project Cars 2 definitely improves on the first game in a bunch of ways. Unfortunately for me, it's a bit of a zero-sum game when for all the steps forward it takes out of the car, once you get into it and start racing around, that's where things start to fall apart a bit for me. Chapter 2, too slow, me furious. I'm kind of terrified to do this bit because everyone loves Project Cars 2. But guys, why does this game feel so slow? Is this just a console thing? PC team, please let me know below, because I do not understand why this feels so much slower than the first game did. I messed around with the field of view settings and the camera shake and everything else I could think of to try to get this feeling as fast and visceral as the first game, but I just never got there. I still found myself going down the back straights of the Nürburgring going, this just doesn't feel fast and frightening in the way it did in the first game. Hell, it felt scary as shit in Need for Speed Shift, which was 30 frames a second on console and made by this same developer. And yes, I tried many different vehicles, many different camera angles, so it's not like I jumped in a Honda Civic and went round Brands Hatch and Chase Cam and went, why is this game slow? I'm really curious if any of you guys noticed this with Project Cars 2 or if I'm just out of my mind, or if there's some recommended settings you have to fix this. But there's something else going on here, something something on a fundamental level that shifted with the gameplay. Something that makes the driving model in Project Cars 3 make a lot of sense. Chapter 3. Float like a butterfly, sting like Project Cars 3. So in my Project Cars 1 versus Project Cars 3 video, which you can check out right here, I mentioned that going from 1 to 3 feels like night and day in terms of how the driving feels. The first game is so grounded, you can practically smell the engine oil and the rubber burning, you can feel your tires on the tarmac. Project Cars 3 on the other hand feels like you've been yanked way up into the air above your car. It all feels so disconnected, the driving feels floaty. They also removed the world's greatest camera angle. So amazing, look at it. Kart racing has never seemed so possible. Anyway, the reason I'm laying all this out again is that playing Project Cars 2 was kind of like this aha moment for me, because its driving model feels somewhere between the first and third game. While I'd never say it feels as disconnected as 3 does, it definitely feels floatier than Project Cars 1. Don't get me wrong, I don't think this is a bad driving model in Project Cars 2. I mean, the third game makes this look like the pinnacle of racing excellence, but I was disappointed to have lost that connected, hyper-involved feeling from the first game. Much like with the sense of speed thing, I messed around in the settings for a while, trying assist, different control settings. It was even more frustrating because every now and again I would have a race that felt amazing. Everything clicked. The car felt great. I felt connected to the road. Going around corners felt fantastic. And then it'd just go back to feeling weird again in the next race. And yes, I know I need to get good. Thank you for your feedback. If we just had the first game's driving model again, surrounded by all the stuff that Project Cars 2 does so spectacularly, like the improved weather, the improved career structure, more cars, more tracks, more content, better progression, this game would probably be one of my favorite sim races ever. I have to say though, the inconsistent slipperiness did make me capable of some accidental fancy driving at times. Whoa, around I go. Very impressive. But I just couldn't really get down with how Project Cars 2 felt. Like there were plenty of moments where I was having fun, then I'd enter a straight and think, gosh, why does this feel so slow? Or I'd float over a curb and think, where's that Project Cars 1 connected feeling? I don't know. Maybe I'm the crazy one. If you love the way Project Cars 2 drives, let me know below. Let me know if you have some recommended settings for me to try as well, because I really want to try to love this game. As it is at the moment, it just kind of bums me out. Chapter 4. It's all making sense now. As I said earlier, going straight from Project Cars 1 to Project Cars 3 was a real shock to the system. I was like, what the hell happened to these menus? And these weather effects? And this driving model? However, playing Project Cars 2 has filled in a lot of these blanks for me. I really do think the weather system in this game looks awesome, but you can definitely see how if you added another 10 to 20% worth of like, let's take this shit way too far, you get to Project Cars 3's pixelated yuckiness. Even with the menus, you can see the DNA of this garish nightmare hiding deep within Project Cars 2. I did a little when I first booted up the second game and saw this font treatment. And the driving model in the third game especially now makes sense to me, because Project Cars 2 really feels like the midpoint between the first game's connected, involved model and the third game's disconnected, floaty snooze fest. I suppose the most insulting thing I could say about Project Cars 2 is it makes Project Cars 3 feel planned. Having previously only played 1 and 3, the third game felt like a horrible accident, like the creative leads at the studio must have left and men in suits had come in and said, let's dumb this driving model down. Let's make these menus look so microtransaction-y and mobile gamey that people will be amazed when they find out there are no microtransactions in this thing. But now after playing 2, I guess I don't feel that way anymore. I now think that for some completely inexplicable reason, the third game is exactly where they wanted to end up. Again though, I must be missing something, either in the settings or in my brain or just in the fact that I played this on PS4 instead of PC, because people love this game very, very much, and I really thought I was going to as well. I'm genuinely shocked. For now though, at least I've got the first game, and I do feel a sense of completion for having seen through the whole trilogy now. Do we call driving games trilogies? The story's pretty epic, so I think so. Is this one canon though? Yeah. Okay, cool. It's just a shame that for me, what I think we have here is one pretty terrible driving game, one pretty decent experience, and a series debut that I think is an all-time great, a racing game Hall of Famer. I wouldn't take back a second of experiencing any of these games though. Thank you Slightly Mad Studios for this fascinating, unique beast of a series. Here's to Project Cars. Thanks for watching my video, everyone. I really appreciate you. I'm not throwing any hate the way of Project Cars 2. I know people love it, and I really wanted to as well. Genuinely, if there's some settings that you think I should try, please let me know below, because I'd love to give this thing another go and end up coming away with a different opinion. Speaking of letting me know below, if there's any other games you'd like me to take a look at, throw them down there as well. I'd love to check them out. If you've enjoyed this video on Project Cars 2, I think you'll probably enjoy this one here as well, so check that out if you've got a moment. My name's Sam. Thanks again, and I'll see you soon.